Good evening, everyone, for taking your time out for this webinar. We intend to have this webinar during the COVID-19. We thought that learning is something very important as reskilling and upskilling and cross-skilling, is really taking place in the organizations and also from the individuals' front. When we had one webinar a few weeks back with education leaders, they've been really emphasizing more on online learning, so which is really taking place in the education sector. Now we're going to have Dr. Ishwan going to talk about it from the Jain University perspective. And as far as industry is concerned, we thought that this is essential for all of us to get to know what each industry is doing as far as reskilling and upskilling is concerned. And also, we're going to have a good amount of sharing and storytelling about your organizations, that how well you're taking this initiative, and what are the new practices which you're really following in terms of the organization's learning, which can really help organization business continuity and organization business performance. And also from the employee side, how we can ensure that the learning is ensured. They should really take ownership of themselves, not to wait for organization to sponsor in this time. Taking up courses so that they own it as far as learning is concerned, and also they stay relevant for today and tomorrow's business scenario. Having thought that, we thought of we'll have this webinar. We have very eminent speakers today, very distinguished from various companies. Thanks all of you joining us for this weekend virtual summit. Before we could start, I'll just share you what is this GWFM. GWFM is one of the fastest growing professional forum and chartered body in the world. We are now 20,000 industry professionals spanning South Asia, Europe, and also US. We have done more than 56 events so far in India and also in Manila. So far, we intend to do world's biggest event sometime. Because of this COVID, now we will have to take up virtual event on this. So what we do, all of you know it. Most of us are GWFM members and also attended a lot of our events as a speaker and panelist in the past. So, however, thought I'll share some perspective that what else that GWFM is doing. We do webinars, we do CXOs interviews, we do a lot of conferences, and recently we have started. We are now chartered body. We had offering chartered accreditation to the universities and colleges. We have recently identified that industry is looking for WFM professionals. We are the first one in the global market offering the WFM courses. We have multiple courses offering in multiple streams. One is for the colleges and universities at the degree level, for the UG, and then with PG. And also we have certification program, which we are offering, and which talks about executive program. And also we have come out with the PGP program for 1 year, and senior leadership program in WFM. Also, we offer membership. Membership can level of learning, which can really take them to the career level, right from the intermediate to competent and expert, and also they can grow. We also offer fellowship and elite fellow within GWFM. There is a career growth that we have as far as GWFM is concerned. We've been offering multiple courses with more than 11 roles, which are really being very critical in this COVID-19, and also they continue to be very critical roles in the organization. We identify the need of the industry, and now we offer the train to earn model, especially for the final year students and last semester students. They're deployable right after the program is done. So GWFM has been providing a lot of platform in terms of master classes, webinars, and also like multiple business cases. Also like corporate memberships, and also the building POCs, internship programs. Also like some of the advanced program with academy and also industry perspective. So GWFM has been very instrumental in terms of making this WFM initiatives, especially first time in the global market, and also interestingly that we have included business continuity management as part of the course, which is very essential. We thought that for the managers, also for the graduates, whoever is passing through, they should really learn and understand that what is business continuity management is all about. So with this, so welcome you to have this great virtual roundtable on reskilling and upskilling. We're going to have each one of us introducing ourselves and get to know that who we are, and probably we'll take it on post switch. With this, thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing each one of you. Over to Patho.
Hi everyone. I put my video on mute so that all of you could be visible. So today this topic that we selected is primarily because there's a lot of discussion that is happening around what happens during COVID-19. Are we likely to see the same scenario as 2008? And on top of that, there are estimates that are being floating. By 2030, as many as 375 million workers will have to master new skills. Then there's one from Accenture which says that India could forego up to 2 to 3% percentage points, or on $1.97 trillion in potential cumulative GDP over the next 10 years if skill building does not match up to technological progress. And to top it all, if all goes well, then by 2027, India will have the world's largest workforce with 1 billion people between 15 and 64 years. Now, I'm sure organizations have recognized that they need to offer learning opportunities that ensure their communities are empowered to tide over the crisis. So here today we will probably discuss a few points here. How do employers prioritize skills during recessions? How to value skills that can't be automated? In the time of extreme financial pressures, how are companies planning to upskill employees? Who will pay for the upskilling programs? How do we identify the right technology? And how do we deliver online? And is there an opportunity in the disaster? And also engagement possibilities with EdTech service providers and large educational institutions. I definitely appreciate that 2 hours is probably a little smaller time frame to discuss all this, but let's try and see we touch upon all these points. And all of you, any point out of these which I had shared earlier, any point that you feel very passionately about, please feel free to go ahead and talk. But right now, what we will do is, we will all go on, we'll mute our videos, and let's begin with Vinay, and then follow it up with people one after the other. Is that okay? Thank you so much.
That's fine, Patho. Thanks. We have registration of around 300. Thanks for all the audience who have joined us. We are already full. Good to go. Thank you so much for all the audience who have showed interest in joining here. Trust me, it's going to be good takeaways and huge learning. Also, we'll park the questions at the last. Let's go ahead with this. Over to you, Vinay.
Yeah, okay. Hi, good evening. This is Vinay Agrawal. So I'm Global Head of HR for Tech Mahindra IT Business. So by training, I'm a chemical engineer from IT Kanpur, then did MBA and worked in manufacturing, then moved to IT business side, and last 7 years I'm in HR. Yeah. Shall we move next?
Vinay,
Yeah.
out of the topics that we have shared, anything that
Okay.
is of particular interest to you, you can start from that.
Yeah. Okay. So, so first of all, in the current situation, we have done lots of learning events. So we have a series of early programs specifically to start with. We've come with something called Work from Home 101. So in this situation, while working, basically how to take care of the information security, how to take care of basically if you have some technical infrastructure issues, how you can troubleshoot yourself, and work management related practices, etc. So point is, work from home is most likely basically emerging as a very valid model of working, and I think unlike past, I think we'll be a lot more open to the work from home model, even when the whole thing comes back to normal. So that's one reality coming in, and we are through this work from home 101 program, we are basically taking care of people getting ready to do that in a very productive manner. So though I think so far the focus was on business continuity. So business continuity has really worked very well. Very, very surprising. Some of the customers, we never thought that they would agree to this change and letting basically the offshore partners to work from home. Majority of those customers have given permission and our engineers are working. More than 90% work is happening out of home. So that's a big revelation, and that's going to be one irreversible change. So even when you come back to normal, work from home will continue. That's one. Uh, we have series of webinars organized for different topics for the customers as well. So not only for employee. There's one series running for them. There's one thing we tried basically 9 p.m. So that program also has been very hit. We have done 17 episodes, and kind of basically speakers we could get is absolutely amazing. And we have recorded that and available to people to view wherever they like. So this is on the basically broader aspect. Now coming back to the technology and the skills for engineers and employees. Uh, so first thing, I think there's a prediction that digital transformation, which was happening around the globe for the last 5 years. So one prediction is that the pace of that transformation would really get 2x, 3x, right? So that is one trend which is most likely. And digital transformation is kind of very loosely used by people. So I want to take a minute to really share my understanding what the digital transformation actually means. So first thing is the customer experience, right? So I mean, Amazon probably is a role model there. So I take example of Amazon, and I think every company is trying to go in that direction. So number one, understand the current customers and the potential customer through a lot of data analytics. And then using that data to maintain the engagement of those customers. So customer experience is very, very important in terms of digital transformation. That's first step. The second step is that basically we can't create customer experience unless we streamline our operational process. So the second thing is supply technology to solve the operational process where the experience is very good. Example I can take here is Mahindra Holidays itself. So they undertook a digital transformation journey, and so while I think the front end they of course improved for better experience, but the most important part was to streamline the back-end processes. So you can just have a pretty user interface, but the actual experience will come from the efficient execution of the process at the back end. The third thing is, which is basically changing the business model itself. So those are the three levels: customer experience, operational process, and the change of the business model. What do I mean by change of business model? An example I can pick up from the insurance industry. So insurance industry globally has been very different. It is basically very, very large organizations who have huge scale of operations, and therefore uh, they have been running fairly well. They have huge cash they're sitting on, and the probability of people claiming that basically is the cost of the entire claims coming is less than what they gather through premium. So that has been a business model and working fairly well. But now this market is basically uh, is being disrupted by technology companies like Google. So Google getting into insurance is basically, and likewise some other companies, and even Amazon also getting into insurance. Uh, and they're, I think, using the AI and the other technologies. The premium and so the premium can be basically dynamically uh, changed, and the habits of the users are being tracked to see whether we should charge more higher premium. So this example of really how the digital things can really change the business model itself. So point I made, just to recap, digital transformation will get accelerated. So that is an opportunity post COVID-19. Every company has been preparing for the digital transformation, but with an increased pace, uh, uh, yeah, and also very stiff competition. That is something 6 months down the line we are forcing. That's writing on the wall. Uh, so it is challenge for all IT services company to prepare themselves and grab that market. Uh, Towards that, what we've done is so we have basically developed a platform called this is AI-based platform called NAD. We call it New Age Delivery. So the whole idea is that basically everybody is on this platform. Everybody's whole data in terms of what project they have worked in the past, what training they're going through. So utilizing the entire data, there's an individual learning track in the tool. So so that basically doesn't just say Java training. So within Java, Angular J is something basically if that skill is required, the courses get automatically aligned. There's a tracking online. I think the managers can see how's my team progressing on the skills assigned to them. And AI is basically processing all the inputs about that person to the projects and learnings they're doing to keep track. So that's the whole approach in terms of skill building. Uh, and what is a link with COVID-19 link is that this trend is going to really get stronger. The other thing, I think the change we're seeing is that since the customer experience and all those things are very, very getting much more important than the past, we also recognize that there is a huge focus on the creative skills, right? So far, uh, engineers, just as coding has been, I mean, coding basically kept India thriving for the first decade of this millennium. Uh, but from early second decade, we're starting to basically see that the domain knowledge is very important apart from technology. Uh, and the talk of really full stack developer, which means that you understand the business to the extent you understand technology. And within technology, probably you understand the back end, middleware, front ends, all the skills. At least you're an expert in one area, but you understand other skills also. Uh, And now I think we'll be getting into space in terms of when you talk about customer experience, there's a lot of creative skills also required. Uh, and since the need for that is so pressing, just to immediately fill that, we have acquired few companies like Bond, like MatPow. So two, three companies we acquired in this space. Uh, the idea was that basically that any company's CMO has its own budget, right? And so they have they so every CMO need to work with two kind of capability. One is technology, digital marketing, etc., and the second is creative side. So when we spoke to potential CMOs as potential customers, so they said that we want to work with partners who can really the creative part, which means we understand the audience, market research, and will design the communication or reach out to them. That's one capability. Then the other is of course technology. So there, the idea was to say that we have to work with O&M kind of company and Tech Mahindra kind of company. But they said that I'm talking about basically this is a cumulative learning after speaking to many CMOs. So they said that I think technology takes much more time to really build the depth. So we would prefer to work with a company like Tech Mahindra, and since we're already working with you so many years. However, you need to figure out a way to fix the creative skill set also. So either you partner with them or do whichever. But if you just come to me like to provide technical solutions, it's not going to work. So that's how I think the whole kind of strategy we took. We said, okay, let's probably have this creative skill also within the company, and when you go to the customer, saying that creative technology both taken care of. So, so the point I'm making here is that for a long-term career, honing creative skills alongside technology is going to be very rewarding career going forward. I think to start with, basically, that's the logical piece. And just if I have to summarize in a minute, I would say that digital transformation is the driving force in coming times. It has been there for the last 5 years, but the pace of it is going to really get further accelerated. So that's an opportunity to start preparing now. Second thing I said, that digital transformation, 3 steps. So first is basic customer experience, second is operational process, and third is changing the business model itself. Third section I spoke about basically for technical skilling. It has to be basically at a second or third level. Just broadly saying that I've experienced in Java or some very broad sections, cloud. So we are talking about micro skilling and saying that basically within cloud, basically which aspect needs development, needs improvement, and that's where the training plan is fixed. And the last one is said that that creative skills are at premium. So if somebody has that, please don't ignore, along with technical skills, creative skill combination is going to be a very, very deadly combination and very rewarding. So these are a few points I thought probably I'll make to start with. Over to Padova.
Yeah. Now, the other question, the important question is, how are we identifying skills? You know, which are valuable skills and which are not valuable skills in the changing circumstances. And see, there's one way to we've seen in the past that the skills which do not matter right now can be allowed to go. That's one aspect. Now, is there a concerted effort in reskilling those people who can still be usable? What is the thought of the CHRO today on this? I would now take this to Deepak, Sandeep, Rajiv to elaborate on this aspect.
We're going there. So, Rajuji, I see you getting ready. You want to go for it? You want to do that? Okay. So, to be honest, when I look back, what has happened last 4 to 5 weeks, what we have witnessed on the ground, this is that I am saying, because otherwise we have been hearing skilling, reskilling, upskilling, cross-skilling. We have been hearing this for a very long time. I mean, it's not that we have not discussed about it. The context has been different. But the reality, what could happen, probably I think we're going through now. And that has kind of opened our eyes and our imagination to the extent which we never fathomed. So today, when we look at what we have gone through last 4 to 5 weeks, and the way we have been supporting, even though remotely, our customers, our business needs, working across departments or within teams per se, I think At a superficial level, everything looks same. At the same time, the logistic challenges and the distance and the remote part of it probably makes it look a little different, very, very different. And deep within, I think we are still doing what we are doing, but the delivery, the vehicle of delivery is different. We are experiencing something, the challenges which we haven't. It's more psychological. It's more because we have been through both that channel for that way of working for a very, very long time, for decades. And probably these nuances did not occur to us then, but now that we know there are physical challenges of reaching office, reaching to a customer, just hopping onto a main road, going across the street to buy something or talk to somebody at will and at a press of a button. I think those things have kind of made us imagine things unimaginable. The great news about that is that we are yet able to do all of that. Most of it, if I can say so, unless the organization is technologically challenged. I come from a technology company, and although we are a technology company, but remote work from home or remote work is not something which we really support in a big way. For whatever reasons, at least at NetMagic now we are part of entity and entity company, but we are an entrepreneur company. The way we have grown and being in the kind of business, customer service business, we always believed in, promoted and supported only that way of mindset and working, where we said you have to be there to be able to do the job. To the extent that the managers and also the HODs, there was a given belief that the team has to be in front of you. They need to be across the floor. They need to be somewhere close in the same building. Everybody wanting that person to be there then and there, right? But now I think all of a sudden, because these restrictions have come, suddenly we said, hey, listen, you have to work from home. And overnight, I'm talking about my division per se, overnight people were enabled to work from home. We said these are the 900 people out of the 1500 lot, 1600 lot. How many can work from home? Okay, these are the people that can work from home. And when we realized the challenge that was there, I had the good that 700 of them were having laptops. The remaining 200, within 2 days, we had to procure the laptops using our supply chain, which was anyway was our strength to those people. Get the teams to configure them and have them delivered with the help of the admin function, the other logistics, everything arranged in 2 days, despite being, having the restrictions that we had in our cities, like Bombay. And within 2 days, come Monday, and everybody is online. Then, of course, the rest of the 600 people who were supposed to come to office, we said, okay, we'll not have all of them. We'll just only get the core people to be there. And 5 days later, the focus shifted from even those people did not come to office. So we suddenly, the respective HODs, then they focused on those 3-4 days. How do I reduce the footfall in my office because it is not safe? So we had just about a handful of people working from home, working from office today. Of course, there are necessary steps where people have to be there. But other than that, I think 85% of our workforce, or maybe 90% of our workforce, is working from home. And that is something like, we never thought it will happen. I never thought, at least. Nobody saw this kind of huge, part of your employee force working from home. And what did we do differently? We are using the same tools, maybe, some video tools now, but now we realize there are some challenges there. We said, we fix that. I think so. The ability to cut short the story, it is changing the lens, changing the way we are looking at things. We are not going to do differently in terms of, the core will remain the same. It is only the outside, the layers, the UAI, should I say the back end of the thing, that is going to change a little bit. Otherwise, the essence, the core is going to remain the same. So if you ask me what skills are in demand, I would say today, I come back to the personal skills, ability to work from remote, ability to convince people, ability to put across their point of view, ability to take people along with you, ability to comprehend, apprehend, also foresee things, what might work, what may not work. It's like sitting and then just imagining, okay, if this each and every transaction, minute by minute, say step by step, you are actually seeing the whole solution in your mind and trying to see it's going to happen. So on day one, I remember when I had my first meeting with my HR leaders, we said, guys, you are head of recruitment, you are head of employee engagement, you are head of ABC. Now list down things that anyway you are doing. List down all those functions that you are doing, which anyway you have that. Against that, write down now that you are going to work from home, which of those functions you are not able to do. And you'll be surprised, 70 to 80% of the people said these are things we can do. And then the third column came, what are the challenges? They're all purely some technology challenges, some time and distance challenges and things like that. Otherwise, then for a few days, we focused on how to get our story along, how to connect regularly, in touch, how will we communicate with each other on the fly, be available, discipline around working from home. Now we're grappling with another challenge that people are saying, hey, listen, at least the office was better. There I knew I had to work from 9:30 to 6:30. Here there is no time defined. Anytime, anything can happen. I'm spending 16 to 18, 20 hours. Now suddenly the focus is shifting to how can I improve the work balance at home itself. I don't know what to say to that. And maybe there are discussions around this point of view. I leave it at that.
Rajiv, your turn now.
Sure, Partha. Thank you. Are you able to hear me properly?
Okay, but yeah, I think we will probably encounter a shortage of time. Let's try and keep things abridged as of now.
Sure.
Then we'll come back for the second round. Yeah?
Yeah, sure. Good evening, everyone.
Request others to just go on mute to get the required bandwidth. Request others, whoever is not speaking, to just go on mute so that we'll have the a good quality of audio and also video. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm a part of IBM India, the CIC Future Skills program. I've been actually nearly 20 years in IBM. I've been in delivery for almost all part of my career in IBM, working for clients across across the globe, North America primarily, and even Europe and in the Asia Pacific. But for the last over a year, I've been part of this initiative, which was meant for improving the future skills, or the reskilling initiative, what we call within the organization. Right. The intent here was to look at. We saw a trend wherein there are certain skills which were in high demand in the past. The demand is actually over a period of time reducing. Now we are seeing it's already reducing. There's a direction it is taking towards going down. At the same time, there are other skills where the demand pipeline seems to be on the other way around, where there's an increase in this. So that is where this initiative was drawn. It has been running for about 6 quarters now. Started from end of 2018 and it's been running ever since. The initial focus was primarily to look at available workforce whom normally come to bench, and then we need to look at deploying them into new skill area. That's where we started off. But much earlier in the cycle itself, early part of last year, we realized that alone is not sufficient. We started doing a little more proactive approach as well, by looking at practitioners who may be already in projects, how we can actually prepare them for these new challenges ahead. The process defined is, it's a well-defined identification phase, which will pick the practitioners who are right for this skill. There is a reason to suggest that, because it's not easy to have all people reskill. It's also not easy to have everyone to get reskilled into every other skill as well. So that initial identification, we felt that it's pretty key. The program itself has a learning part, of course, as well as a hands-on associated with it, because hands-on is mandatory in this. Because when you call reskill, it's about enabling somebody to work in a new technology area which they have not familiar with before. So as part of the learning, there has to be a mandatory hands-on phase, which we had introduced. And there is as well an assessment at the end of it, a formal assessment process defined by the respective SMEs or the practice leaders who are owning that particular target skill. So this has been the process that we have defined as an approach through this year, through this last 1 year or so. This also threw a different challenge for us, especially when we had to look at candidates who are part of the project working on this kind of activity. You don't get them full time to attend this training, to attend this program. So we had to define these programs and convert some of the programs into having them spending a couple of hours a day or 8 to 10 hours a week and slightly longer programs. This actually also forced us to think differently. Classrooms were not always maybe an approach that we can use for that kind of training, because you can't have somebody come in for a classroom and take the session and go back and prefer. So we had to move towards moving most of our trainings to a digital platform or a virtual kind of delivery mode. So this also happened parallelly on this front. And what sort of target skills and which are the skill areas to focus on? There was a driver of demand that we see on the ground playing a part in this as well. Demand, when I say, it can be something that we see immediately in the immediate future, or it could be something that we see slightly down the horizon, looking at the industry trends, what we hear from the client, and so on and so forth. So this has been the practice they've been following for nearly about 6 quarters now. What has COVID-19 situation changed, brought in as an additional challenge? Of course, one was about the delivery mode itself, right? It has to be digital. There is no classroom possible anymore in this new scenario. But unfortunately for us, since we had started the journey earlier, in a way, enabling people to work in virtual training or virtual programs, that kind of added as an advantage. But still, we had a few left out who were still classroom based, some of the programs, which we had to quickly convert and move them around to a virtual delivery model, and we continue on that journey. Another key aspect that has changed this thing is about what sort of training are we going to run here? What's the demand situation on the ground? What are the technologies or skills which are in demand going forward? What we're seeing on the ground is there are those hard skills what we used to define earlier, be it automation, be it digital, be it cognitive, or any of those type of skills which are still in demand. But the volume of those skills in demand, how is it going to change? The demand outlook is not very clear still yet. What are these clients going to do? How many, how the people going to, how many of these businesses are going to say ramp down or ramp up as the need arises? In the current scenario of extreme dynamics nature, to define a path or decide, okay, how many people are going to do it in the next month, next quarter, which skill is going to be, is becoming, is forcing us to work in an extreme agile mode, so to speak. The program itself needs to be delivered or operated in an extreme agile mode. We are working very close. We have a workforce management team within the organization which actually tracks the upcoming demand, the upcoming resource availability, demand outlook, those ones, and defining which are the skills where we are seeing a shortage of supply, which are the skills where we are seeing an excess supply. We are constantly working with them, very closely working with them, and doing a replanning of the reskill planning, more like on a weekly or a monthly kind of replanning that is needed. This is the way we are looking at it. We think this particular trend is going to continue for some time until we know for sure things are stabilized, the businesses are back to running mode. They are able to kind of define or decide on which path they are going to take in terms of the future IT landscape of the work, their own business priorities. The current pressures of most of the clients are able to ensure that they are able to run their current business as is. I'm pretty sure many of them are looking at how better prepare themselves in a delivery model that we are seeing today, where in their workforce has to work remotely or in a virtual mode. Right? And Third aspect that I see as that's going to come forward as a key challenge going forward is, I heard one of the other panelists mention this about this he mentioned about multiple skills, minute level of skills. I would call one of the challenge we have been seeing here is the era is over of somebody who having just one primary skill or one particular core skill. This is about this challenge of this today is looking, this is a trend that we see on the ground is multiple skills. Somebody who's able to do a development and testing at the same time, or a full stack developer we call it, somebody who's able to work on the front end, the middleware, as well as on the back end. In cloud platform, somebody who's able to work on multiple cloud platforms, right? These are kind of skills that need for working having multiple skills. Actually, the new scenario has enhanced much further, especially because in the office environment with a team working together, you always had somebody to help each other at the next if you have a challenge. But today, many of our people are working on their own from remote workplaces. Yes, there is help available on a WebEx or a Zoom or any of those digital platforms, but at the same time, most of the time they need to be delivering on their own. So having those multi-skilled workforce is going to be the key going forward. This is one of the trends that we're seeing, right? And the approach has to be pretty agile. Agile in the sense, in terms of demand fulfillment, in terms of training identification, in terms of identifying the new skills required, the planning, etc. Even from an employee perspective, actually, so because of the environment is going to be quite dynamic, you need to be watching out for the current skill level where you are, where the demand is going to be, and look for opportunities where you can apply yourself further and learn some of these new ideas coming in. We also try to tap into a certain, one thing we realize that in the new model of working, some of the people are going to be overloaded compared to before. We know that in the general scenario, in the new, because though people are used to working from home in the past, but the entire workforce working from home, your clients, your partners, your all the whole delivery workforce working from, including their end client, that was a scenario which we are not prepared for. So it obviously put some extra pressure on the team in the shorter term. Some of the key guys, maybe for a much longer period. But at the same time, it also opened up certain avenues that some people were not fully occupied, or some people had the time on their hands to kind of maybe look at additional activities. So this was another group that we tried to kind of tap into and see whether they can be converted, they can be better use their time in terms of getting into some of these planned activities and the programs that we have planned for. These are some of the steps that we have taken so far that we have seen. As I mentioned earlier, this seems to be a pretty dynamic area as we move forward. We do have a program that we have started off, which has been running well for about 6 quarters, but we feel there is a need for tweaking it and replanning and reprioritizing and modifying it, staying very close to the demand situation that is unfolding in front of us as we move forward. That's it from my side at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajiv. Now, as I said, Murli had to leave. So, if Murli is available, Murli, are you there?
Yeah, not Patoda. I'm here.
Yeah. So, Murli, basically, as the talent development, teams in various organizations, how in these times, companies when budgets are under pressure, how companies are planning to upskill employees and L&D professionals' point of view.
And someone can go on mute in the video so that Murli can come up. It takes only.
Yeah,
Murli, if you could come on to the video.
Thanks, Patoda and Shiva for calling, for inviting me to this roundtable. Sorry, I had an audio problem. I just couldn't hear the other speakers. But I think I just got the gist of what we are discussing here. One is about skilling, reskilling, and how the pandemic has either accelerated or affected this program. So I'll speak from Virtusa's experience. I work for a company called Virtusa Corporation. Virtusa is 1 billion plus in revenue into digital services, and we are headquartered in the US and have offices across India, Sri Lanka, Singapore, Australia as well. So I think one thing that we did was, especially to prepare ourselves for this digital, digital marketplace, right? I mean, there's a lot of demand in the digital space. So what we did was we completely reorganized ourselves, and that happened almost a year ago, year and a half ago, in terms of how we look at skills. So I think one thing that we have really seen is that granular skill, a specialization is not enough. That I think that's one realization that we had. So so we kind of reorganized ourselves into what we called as capabilities, right? So a combination of skills got into capabilities. And what we did was we completely realigned the workforce. We have about 24,000 team members working across the globe, and we realigned all of them to capability centers. And as we speak, before the pandemic hit, we were actually getting them on a baseline. So for example, we institutionalized what we call as the engineering intelligence quotient, right? So we said, what is your engineering capability in these capabilities? So there are assessments that people have to take. There are some hands-on things that they have to do. So that baselining work was going on. That's when the pandemic hit. Now, once the pandemic hit, obviously there was a lot of disruption in terms of our work. Like I think the previous speakers spoke about, organizing people to work from home, especially in India, was quite a challenge. So we did that. But what we realized was, and this was something that I was also telling my leaders, is that when you look at human capabilities, I always look at it from three lenses. One is competencies, which is possibly the higher level, and then you have the capabilities, and then what I call as capacities. And this pandemic has really shown that capacities are important, right? I mean, the way you kind of respond to such a black swan event is I think very important, and we may possibly have more of them, right? I'm not what do you call a person who's predicting the apocalypse, but we are going to have more such black swan events. And all our BCP programs that we had always planning for climate-related disasters, right? We never had healthcare-related disasters. None of the BCP was planned for that. So this is the first time, possibly in lot many people's living memories, their health and wealth was affected. And for them to be able to cope with this kind of situation, and then getting locked down, isolated, not things that are taken that are very certain became suddenly uncertain. Right from getting your groceries to your vegetables to your milk. So the question is, for anybody to be functional in such a disaster, one needs to really have that capacities. And I think in my view is in terms of capability build, or whatever development that needs to happen in organization needs to happen at a capacity level. So how do you really build capacities within within your team members so that they're able to respond and prepare themselves for situations like this? So that's what we have been doing, and the disaster has kind of accentuated that. It did disrupt our work as well. So we all have switched over to completely online, and we've put a complete program in place where people are able to take their assessments from home. We do have a complete proctoring system that's available online, and people are able to take their assessments. They get their scores. They know exactly where the gaps are, and then they also know how to actually, what kind of skills and knowledge that they need to acquire to kind of close those gaps. They also get assigned to mentors who can help them in terms of directing them, guiding them in terms of how to overcome or close these gaps. We also have some initiatives which are very focused, especially in the cloud transformation space. I think some of the speakers also spoke about that. So we are really focusing on developing cloud capabilities. I think these are some skills that are really going to be very necessary in the digital space. So some of these initiatives are happening, and I think the response has been really good. Certainly, people find it difficult to kind of manage their role, time, and space boundaries, especially working from home. I think that's another challenge, right? How do I really keep my role boundaries? How do I keep my space boundaries? And how do I keep my time boundaries? I think those are some of the challenges that people have been facing, our team members. We have also been doing some pointed intervention in that space, trying to help them figure out, sort out some strategies for themselves to work and be productive from home. Another initiative that we have started is, this initiative just started before the pandemic hit. We have started building, developing some of our senior leaders as leadership coaches. We believe that coaching as an intervention, leadership coaching especially, helps build capacities within the individuals. So we are running a program where about 20 leaders are going through the ICF credentialing process, and they're coaching about 100 mid-level managers to become leaders within the company. And each of them would get close to about 20 hours of coaching for over a period of 6 months. And these are very senior leaders. They are possibly the executive -1, right? So that level kind of people. So these are some of the initiatives that we're trying to build. Certainly the pandemic has disrupted, also has thrown new possibilities in terms of how we carry on our work, how we deliver to our customers, what possible, what are the possibilities and the creative ways of actually getting things done. I think those things have come to the fore, and there is, of course, a lot of disruption, a lot of suffering, pain, but it's also thrown up a lot of possibilities, like every other thing, right? So I see a lot of hope in terms of, and I also see that there is going to be a complete disruption in terms of the way IT services were delivered, especially from offshore centers. This concept of ODCs and security, I think all those things have been disrupted. So today there is a news item, I think some of you must have seen as well, that TCS is planning to have 75% of its workforce work from home, right? So I think that's going to become the norm. So security itself will get reinvented. Obviously, it's going to be more secure, and we are doing all the client work from our from our house network. So I think these are some of the opportunities that we have, and obviously that's going to put a lot of pressure, a lot of change that an individual need to make to be able to be productive from their own homes. Thank you, Partha. I hand it back to you. That's all I have.
Thanks a lot, Murli. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being around. Now we slowly, going towards the end of the roundtable. So we will now bring in Pankaj. If Pankaj is around, Pankaj, you are there?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So let's hear it from Pankaj. Post Pankaj, after Pankaj, Sandeep and Kaustav will speak. And Kaustav, Sangram, Devyani, Prithvish, then our Jaya, Ramakrishna, Vincent. That's how the order is going to be. So on with Pankaj right now.
And we have Deepak as well from.
Yeah, Deepak.
Okay. And Pankaj has joined from Singapore. Thanks so much for taking time, Pankaj. You may go ahead.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me over. Ladies and gentlemen, a quick introduction. My name is Pankaj Behel, and I am a part of the IBM Global Business Services based out of Singapore. And I look after the learning and knowledge function for all our global delivery centers across the world. I have the pleasure of working very closely with Rajiv and his team. Rajiv just presented about a speaker before about our reskilling initiatives in India, which we partner on not just in India, but for the rest of the world as well. Before I deep dive into how COVID has changed our way of looking at skill enablement, um, the very concept of looking at skills had changed ever since new skills became the new currency for today's workforce. Gone were the days where people were happy with simply building on the depth of a certain skill, maybe something that they had acquired in their engineering degree or in college, and continue to do a job that they were meant to do and hope for progression to happen. The mindset changed not just of the organizations, but much before of our workforce. They started to look at adding ancillary and even new skills in the hope of doing something new. And that, while we continue to say that reskilling, upskilling, or cross-skilling are all business strategies, I think somewhere our learners, our workforce made us go there. And even if we were kicking and screaming on the floor, they would have dragged us down if we hadn't gone ahead and changed and incorporated this entire skill enablement as a corporate strategy right from top down to bottom up. So what changed? We were doing all the right things. We started to look at how skills and the gap of the skills and how we need to start building them. And then, of course, we slept one day and we woke up to a completely new world the very other day. And what COVID has done is accelerated the pace of change that we would have never anticipated. Like one of our previous panelists was talking about, our very definition of BCP has completely changed. This is not what we had ever planned for, and there is no going back. Will this become the new normal? A lot of our esteemed guests talked about we would definitely not be going back, and probably a part of how we operate, how we deal with within the organization, with our clients, with the market, some of it will continue. I doubt if anything is going to go back to what it was in Q4 of last year. Of course, one of the biggest shifts in going towards skills, I would talk about that has happened due to COVID is that the intraplay of what skills are important in reskilling has kind of changed. Historically, especially for a company like IBM, technology skills always remain extremely critical to any skill enablement drive, while of course we continue to build on all the other ancillary skills. With COVID, I think one of the things that has come up is that core skills, your attitude that will nurture your aptitude, those kind of skills are going to become more important or stronger in the way organizations will start stacking their talent. What you bring on the table as your attitude, as your propensity to learn, is going to become more important than simply the skill level that you have acquired. Because while you may have the skill set and you may be a very a great full stack developer in the making, however, if you do not have the resilience or the focus to work in this new normal way of working, if you are not able to adapt how to manage people, whether they are your stakeholders or your team members, in this new operating model, your technical skill expertise may be there, but the success for the organization or for you as an individual may not necessarily happen. So how we start nurturing these skills in the coming days will be a challenge that we will have to prepare ourselves for. And associated with that is going to be, how do we performance manage this new skill? Because this new skill and whatever else it's going to get in its forum is going to be, again, need to be managed remotely. So as we move forward, propensity to learn will end up becoming a much more stronger data point for us as a learning organization than simply the current skill that you're on, because that will show whether you will acquire this new skill but be able to apply it as well as you move forward in the new environment of working, in the new model of working. I think Vinay started off initially talking about our new normal has changed. So our focus has been first and foremost to make work from home work, not just from pure technical and work logistics perspective, which you all talked about. And I personally went through because my children were getting homeschooled all of a sudden, and I just did not have enough machines at home wherein everybody could log in at the same time, or the bandwidth for that matter. So despite the technical and the work logistics, looking at how people are being able to cope up with their 9 to 5 job, as well as taking care of the children and the food and the household work all at the same time, ended up becoming as much as a responsibility for not just the individuals, but their people managers as well as their functional managers and the organization as a whole. And I think the connotation of work-life balance will have a completely new meaning as we go forward as this situation develops. Last but not the least, I think what is going to be very important and things that we are working on is an intuitive, need-based skill enablement drives. Gone are the days where we could spray paint everybody with a standard offering because that was the need of the hour and that is what the organization needs. How is it that we can drill down to very, very specific needs that, or delta areas that I have versus my next door neighbor, will make skill enablement that much more of a pull factor for the learners versus a push factor, which has traditionally been the case for us, where we've looked at, here's my demand, here's my supply, this is what you need to do to meet my demand, let's get going. If we want that pull factor where people are excited about learning and acquiring new skills, new competencies, and new capabilities, then trying to offer them something which is unique to them will become all that more important. I think a lot of our organizations across the board, whether from the IT field or not, have already started scoping models that will help them identify those niche gap areas. I just think COVID will accentuate that need more, and it will be very, very important as we move forward that we look at that as well. With that, I'm going to call it a wrap and hand it over back to the moderators.
Thank you so much, Pankaj. So can we go on to Sandeep now?
Yeah. Good evening, everyone.
Sandeep, let's stick to about 3 to 5 minutes. Yeah, because we have still panelists to cover. Once we are able to complete everyone, we'll come back to speakers again. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So good evening, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here and talking about a area which is impacting all of us. So in these times of COVID-19, where some very interesting things have been thrown up. It's in a way it's a very big leveler for all of us globally. All of us, the entire world community is at one page, one same level. Some or the other being at higher impact or lower impact. So the whole movement and transformation which is happening is mostly very similar all across the industry or countries specifically. So where we move from WFO to WFH, which is work from office to work from home. Well, as Vinay said in the beginning, there are a couple of broad areas which are getting impacted. Is one is your business model, then customer service engagement, customer engagement, and then people engagement. So already you see in business model transformation, we had started off with a shift from retail channel sales towards in Samsung from retail channel sales towards online sales. So we had huge partnership with the likes of Amazon and Flipkart. And I see that process getting much more accentuated in times to come. Then and there again, you see, there'll be a lot of issues because you have a very strong retail channel network. So you have to take care of that also. So we foresee movement from retail sales to online sales gradually happening. So in between, there'll be a transition of phygital. So which basically means physical sales and combined with online sales. Second is movement and marketing. So consciously, we have taken decision to gradually move out from print-based advertising to digital marketing. So a lot of our flagship categories in Samsung like S20 or S8 have been specifically focused towards digital marketing. Then the whole area of supply chain, where how do we, reach the customer, go to market speed is increased. So all those areas, digital is playing a huge part. Now, how do we enable our workforce, which is typically the topic here? So we already started that process even before this corona pandemic started. So, but now I foresee that getting much more stronger, where digital online e-learning education will take a very strong place. So we have a very strong LMS system already implemented, and the individual development planning started much before this corona thing. So now we'll have to really think again as to how do we were planning both blended learning, physical learning, classroom, and online learning. So we'll have to really plan how the whole changes towards going completely online. So just moving from the offline training programs to online programs. Then basically, how do we also enable customer engagement? So we have about 50,000 promoters who are across our retail chains. So we gone digital, and that process will get even more stronger where they're corrected on real-time basis. So the skills which will really be required would be something around digital marketing. People will be much more they'll have to be trained towards handling digital marketing solutions. Then the whole process of how do we drive the sales, and the whole enablement process for these movements will have to be taken forward through online learning. Now in online learning, we have very strong LMS portal where there is an online university called Samsung University, where you have plethora of courses from say lynda.com or Harvard Management or Udemy or Coursera. So employee has the flexibility to choose from there. Another very important change which I see is, first you had prescribed courses. Now there'll be a lot of flexibility where employees will be able to curate their own playlist. So that is something very important, and they'll also be able to curate, take learning programs from say things like YouTube or a Google. So there'll be much more flexibility in this. So these are certain things which I feel, and data analytics will be something very keen, because when you are online, you get to know your hit rates, your preferences, the employee preferences, customer preferences on a real-time basis. So data analytics will throw up such amazing things where you would have very strong predictive capabilities. So in this era where we are not only impacted by pandemic, this medical pandemic, we are also impacted by infodemic. So you have a lot of informations. Some of them are from facts and some of them are from fiction. So you have to really shape out the wheat from the chaff. So in this era, reskilling, upskilling in these areas will be extremely important. So that's what I wanted to share my thoughts with you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Sandeep. So can we have Kaustav on? Kaustav, can you try to get your video up? Or somebody from here can try it?
Yeah.
Kaustav,
Someone can,
try it now.
Let me try.
I have muted my video.
Okay. Thank you, Debjani. Much appreciated. Can you see me?
Yes, very much.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, and Parthuda and Shiva, thanks for having me on. Pleasure to be listening to these stalwarts from the industry. There's been a lot of knowledge already shared. So, frankly, there's not much left for me and some of the other speakers to share because most of the key points have already been very well touched upon by the speakers who have gone before us. So, I think we have to first start by saying thank you to them for having made our jobs easier. We will be able to spend less time and perhaps get away with quoting less number of points. It helps being a backbencher even in corporate world, just like in college, it looks like. By way of quick introduction, my name is Kaustav Chakravarti. Globally, people prefer to call me KC because their names are sometimes too complicated for non-Indian speakers. So I go by KC in the industry. I lead global HR for Johnson Controls Hitachi Air Conditioning. Global HR is defined as all HR for all countries other than Japan, which is where our headquarters is. So of our total workforce of about 18,000 people, roughly 50% are in Japan, 50% are in other countries. And the 50% that is not in Japan comes under my remit. I have a fairly large team because in manufacturing companies, as you might imagine, we are not only human resources people, but also general administration people. And so I have a team of about 100 people, 20 different manufacturing, research and development and global hub locations around the world across all time zones. And quite a complex organization catering to different types of audiences ranging from manufacturing through support and administration functions, through sales, and of course to the top leadership. So it's a pretty interesting job. I'm based out of Singapore, although at this point I'm in India because the flights shut down when I had come down here to meet some family. So otherwise you will typically find me in my Singapore office. So not wanting to repeat the points that have already been shared, I thought it would be easy for us to, in our company at least, to look at this whole COVID-19 impact on our talent from a very familiar network. Most of us, those of us who have been in the L&D and OD space at least, have come across this model of identifying skill development areas at a very broad level, which is managing the company, managing your relationships and teams, and managing yourself. Right. So looking at the COVID-19 impact on our people from these three lenses, I think like every other global large high-tech manufacturing company with operations around the world, we have been impacted in all of these three areas. And of course, when I say we have been impacted, definitely everyone from the leadership all the way down to the person, the foot on the street, front end, cutting edge staff have all been impacted quite severely. As some of our other illustrious speakers have already shared, I think the biggest and most visible impact of this crisis has been working from home for many people, and that obviously includes us as well. Of course, in our business, a large part of our staff, our employee base, actually has to work from factory. We have, I think, about 11 or 12 factories around the world in virtually every time zone. And so what we faced in our organization and others like us was slightly different from perhaps what some of the India-specific organizations or India-heavy organizations might have faced. Because for us, the pain really started off in mid-late February, around the Chinese New Year season, when China went off. We had several plants in China, and it was horrifying to see one by one the lights flicking off in the world map. Suddenly, plants go off incommunicado, production drops. Of course, everybody is running helter-skelter. The leadership is all trying to figure out what's happening. But what you realize is that the situation is evolving so rapidly that there's just no way to predict what is going to happen the next hour, forget tomorrow. When we started formulating some kind of a response to this crisis in the first place. So fortunately, we didn't have a plant in Wuhan or the Hubei province, but we did have plants in Guangdong, which is, I think, about 1,000 kilometers away. We had plants in Anhui, in Wuxi, in Wuhu, which are neighboring provinces. We have a large operation in Shanghai. We have a large operation in Beijing. So each of these kind of cascading, the wave of coronavirus hit each of these places, and so we had to very quickly figure out how to put people on work from home. What to do with our workforce. Most importantly, how to keep them safe, how to keep our employees safe. So there was a lot of learning that we took away from that. Of course, as these plants went offline, we went through the whole learning curve of social distancing, personal protective equipment, safety measures, the BCP protocols being tested, communication channels being established, so that you had daily reporting in all these plants in terms of who has been affected, if any, what has the production been like, what's going to be the impact on our suppliers, what's going to be the impact on inventory, these financial kind of metrics. And so very quickly we established a very strong cadence around tracking and reporting back on the status in each of these plants, which I think helped us to prepare for the larger wave worldwide that was to come, which of course at that point we could not predict. So especially as the crisis raged through China, I think we learned and got better at managing some of these issues with that country. And so there was a bit of a lull for those of us who have been through this and who had similar experiences. You will recognize what I'm saying. That around the beginning of March was when we started seeing China kind of limp back to normalcy, the first 6 or 7 days of March. One by one, our plants started coming back online. We started opening up and workforces started reporting. We started with 50% workforce in one plant, 70% in another, and so on. But along the way, the crisis slowly started escalating in Europe, which was kind of the next country set of countries to get hit. And as you might expect, we have plants in Europe as well. We also have large sales forces and offices there, admin offices there. So the next plant to go offline was our Spain plant. But by the time 3 or 4 China plants had come back on, and fortunately our Japan plants were not impacted at all. Then Malaysia went down. India went down. So it was a very interesting, the last 1 month has been really interesting for us as an organization. The Chinese have a beautiful saying, may you live in interesting times. I can honestly tell you that I have experienced that in reality in great detail over the last few years. So at this point, fortunately, the Spain plant has come back online. All the China plants are back 100% to productivity. India is still down, but I think we are in the process of starting off because of the relaxation effective the 21st. So we have a crew in the plant warming up our machinery, and we should come back very quickly in the next few days. Malaysia is still shut down, but fortunately the crisis has not escalated beyond Malaysia. Thailand has not seen a shutdown. Singapore is operating on minimal social distancing rules, so productivity has not really been hit, and so on. So now the real problem, while we started with a supply side shock, is now there's a demand side shock. As you might expect, our business has been severely hit across most of our customer segments. Suddenly, we are in the business of air conditioning, which means home construction, office construction, retail, healthcare, hospitality, travel and transportation, airports, bus stations, railway stations. These are really our big customer segments. And right now, all the other customer segments are dead to us. We are getting minimal orders. But in most of our ongoing construction projects, we have been designated as an essential service because the safety and security of the workforce in those ongoing projects is directly tied to our services, and therefore we continue to operate those. And not so surprisingly, healthcare has come up as a huge upsurge in demand for us because of the number of hospitals that need support, the extensions and expansions that are happening, reconfigurations across the world, and so on and so forth. So business, the context of our business is changing. Now that is the context in which we in our company need to look at skill development, upskilling, reskilling, all of these words. So when I say managing the business, managing our relationships and teams, and managing our people, how does that kind of boil down to this? So bottom line up front, there's a military term called bluff, which I always prefer to use. So I will give it the bottom line up. For us, there are basically 3 areas where we've seen impacts. And I shortened this into an acronym called ACE or ACE, right? What is this ACE? A for action bias, C for communication, and E for empathy. These are the 3 areas where we have seen a huge shift in the way that we need to operate our business. So how does it boil down to in terms of actually impacting our day-to-day work? Right? Now, all of a sudden, we are realizing that business still has to go on. We still have to pay our employees, as at least those of us who are doing work from home, or salespeople who are still trying to keep in touch with their customers. So the difference has been in terms of how we communicate with each other and how we communicate with our stakeholders. So that means a lot of our employees now are having to work virtually, just as many of our prior speakers have already shared. There's, as you might expect, a significant amount of video conferencing and virtual conferencing happening. But how does this pan out for us? Now, formerly, we had a plethora of these technologies being implemented. We had in the same organization, Skype. We had Microsoft Teams and Avaya webinars, Avaya teleconferencing. All of them being used simultaneously. This was causing a huge amount of problem. Thanks to some of the challenges that this particular crisis has imposed, the whole company has kind of pivoted on a dime and started using Microsoft Teams. Skype is being used in a limited way. Avaya has almost been abandoned. But this makes life very easy for all of us who need to constantly jump on calls from one region or one country to the other. No longer need to find what is the dial-in number, what is the conference code. It's all very simple. Click on a link, the video pops up, and you're in. Everybody's sharing the screen. We're all talking. It has been, it's one of the underreported transformations, but it's a huge transformation for a global company that is also a JV to be able to talk in one language seamlessly using one technology. So that's been a direct benefit for us. Similarly, our salespeople have had to start using different types of methodologies to interact with their customers. We're still making pitches. We're still supporting our customers technically. We're still doing training for our customer technicians. But only difference is instead of doing it in our technical training centers, which we invested $100 million to build and so on. Now all of that is happening on Skype. It's happening on Zoom. It's happening on Teams. It's happening on some other video technology. And what we're realizing is that that is possible. In fact, in today's situation, that is the only thing that is possible. It's no longer in most of our countries legally feasible to bring people into one room and to train them. It's also not safe. We want to make sure our employees are safe. Right? So communication has been significantly transformed. Secondly, in terms of action bias, as an organization that's predominantly Japanese, we are very well known for having rigid processes, highly documented and step-by-step kind of approach to do anything. But what this crisis has taught us is that when your house is on fire, you cannot follow standard operating procedure. You've got to figure out how to thread the needle on the fly. You have to build the airplane as you fly. And so, like it or not, our team leaders, our leadership especially, has been put through the grinder in terms of being very rapid in their responses, thinking on their feet, not having to wait for the whole plan to be available before you put one step forward, but instead figuring out things as you go along, a lot more dynamic in our approach. Same has been true of our employees. Now, suddenly, it has become more important to get things done rather than to get permission. So oftentimes we realize our employees are taking the right decisions and then asking for forgiveness later. The entrepreneurialism that we need to see during this particular time, thankfully, is actually emerging. Our people are stepping up and doing their job. So this crisis has been a wake-up call for us, a reset in terms of how we operate as a global conglomerate. And I believe that's a great positive, notwithstanding all of the other challenges that we are all facing as a community and as a company. So that is from an perspective. Also, we have become more global. We have to operate from a 24/365 perspective. No longer can we afford to say my shift is over, I'm going home. Sometimes you need to sit in one country and talk to 3 other countries that span time zones on either side of you. And the only way you can do that is by scheduling a call in a time zone for yourself, which is uncomfortable. You have to do that. So as you grow, you have to take on some of these challenges and continue to balance your life rather than looking at some rigid concept called work-life balance. And I think our people are learning that. Our leaders are learning that, and our employees are mid-level managers are learning. Thirdly, in terms of empathy, and this I believe is the biggest advantage that we have gained out of this whole exercise. What this has forced us to do is to realize that each and every person in the team is a human being. And so the challenges that one of us face are equally the challenges that everybody might face at one time or another. To give you a simple example, if I'm doing a call from home and suddenly there's a small cry of a small child in the background, or family argument about why the washing machine was switched on too late or something like that, then my colleagues will understand. Now I have a confidence, because the next day one of them will have the same argument with their family while they're calling. So suddenly this crisis has brought to the forefront the simple fact that we are human first and resources later. And as a human resources professional, for me, this is very rewarding. So from a upskilling and reskilling perspective, while our colleagues have already stated in great detail the technical and the larger aspects of this, I think fundamentally for me, the two biggest advantages that this crisis has brought forward in our people is to highlight, number one, that we need to be technically able. In today's world, if we don't know how to learn new technology, people will design technologies. Workday will be designed by somebody. But if you don't have the capability to adapt to the new technology, to figure out how to use Teams, to not get stuck with your video conferencing tool, but to know how to use it, it's not rocket science. Then it works well for you. So you need to be learnable, coachable, and the ability to learn, therefore, is a key differentiator. I've been sharing this in seminars for 3 or 4 years now, but now it's really hitting home hard, and people are realizing that between a great employee and also ran that is one of the key differentiators. Secondly, is the ability of organizations to build resiliency in their own operating structures. So having this rigid process-driven approach no longer works. We have to be more outcome-driven. And to the extent that we are able to change how we operate on a day-to-day basis to respond to current challenges, we'll be better. And finally, like I already said, empathy is extremely important. Leaders are learning that there is a difference between a great leader and a supervisor. The great leader is able to coach, manage, empathize with, align to purpose, and keep their employees motivated and engaged. And so personally for example, as compared to before COVID, DC and AD, if you can say, before COVID and after this tragedy, the difference is that I spend a lot of my time these days doing one-on-ones. FaceTime has become extremely important. I had to get into one-on-one coaching with 2 or 3 of my exit leaders in the morning. There's a lull in the afternoon when I can probably have a siesta, and sometimes I do, because I need to work pretty late in the night as well. And starting from 6 in the evening, the US comes online, Europe is online. So I spend a huge amount of time coaching people in those time zones to make sure that we are doing everything that we need to do. And these are all capable people. Its only problem is that these are situations that have been unprecedented. Nobody knows how to deal with them. So having someone there to support you and to throw your ideas around and point you in the right direction, keep you honest, is extremely important at these times. So as leaders, I think these are the jobs that we need to perform. So learning opportunities abound for everybody. I think 2 or 3 months later, we will have the time to look back and say, here are all the specific things that we learned from this exercise. But how does cross-skilling and upskilling work in these times? I think it's really up to the employee to figure out what they need to do to get to the next point and to achieve the next goal that they need to do. And for the managerial community to step up and coach and support. From the OHI standpoint, the supportive managerial behavior is extremely important at this point. So that would be my summary of this situation. Thank you. Back to you, Barbara.
Now, there is on one side we have all of you from the corporate segment. We also have facilitators from the other side, which is the academia. Like there are various large institutions which are working very closely with corporates to collaborate on their upskilling and reskilling efforts. Now we have with us Dr. Ishwara Nair, who is the Dean and Director at Jain University, and we are fortunate that Jain University is a big support system for GWFM, and all the major initiatives that we have taken, Jain University has always made it a point to collaborate with us on that. So I'd now bring in Dr. Ishwaran Iyer to talk about his perspective from the academia on upskilling and reskilling efforts. Sir.
Thank you, Parthoda, and thank you all learned members from the L&D team from the industry. Perhaps I am the only odd man out because all of you are from industry. I am representing academia. Just to give a brief about what is Jain Group. Jain Group was founded by our visionary chairman, Dr. Chenraj Rajchan. In fact, he was a very successful businessman in textiles. He forego that business, he gave it to his brother, and in the year 1990, Bhagwan Mahavir Jain College was formed as an education institution from, as an affiliated college of Bangalore University, and the theme was to create entrepreneurs, if you are a job seeker, entrepreneurs, and contribute to nation building. Year on year, from 1990 to 2020, we grew strength by strength. And today I am proud to say that we have 80,000 students spread across India, and we have 80 plus institutions. That is a brief about Jain Group. I am Dr. Ishwaran Iyer, and I was a dean for Bhagwan Mahavir Jain College, which got the university status by the central government order under Section 3 of the UGC Act. And now I am the Dean for Commerce and Director Industry Interface and Key Projects for Jain deemed to be University. We are among the top 50 in India, among the 850 plus universities in India, based on the NAC ranking. And we are one among the few young universities, which it's a 10-year-old university. We are among the few universities which has got a graded autonomy given by the UGC and HRD ministry. Being deemed university in nature, we were able to bring in the industry to the corporate or the industry to academia, and we have been able to design courses that only because of the flexibility of being your own university. But then I think COVID-19 was much beyond that. Why I wanted to tell you is, conventionally, most of the teachers, I'm talking about the academic fraternity, they were looking only into the chalkboard or the blackboard, and none of them even felt that online teaching is possible. Perhaps for people like us who are from academia, it was only seeing that Baiju ad where he comes and shows an algorithm how it can be done through online, or Shah Rukh Khan coming and telling you download a Baiju app and you'll be able to learn. But COVID-19 definitely was a jolt, and people from the academic fraternity who were thinking that only classroom education is possible, they adapted. And I'm proud to say that Jain was one of the pioneers to venture into Zoom platform or into Google platform or go to webinars. And we were able to conduct classes online right from the day Karnataka government declared. The next day after the government declared that lockdown was there, we started doing it. But as most of the learned people who have been sharing this platform have been telling, skilling and upskilling is not only important for industry professionals, it is important for the students also, and as well as the teaching fraternity also. But I still remember, from a period when you were called as a backward country to a developing country and to among the top 5 or top 6 nations in the world. Knowledge, skills, and research are 3 important components for any economy to grow and sustain. Jain University has been able to do all these things with the support of the industry. We have programs in emerging areas. We have programs in skilling. We have programs using our online platform, which is called as GWFM. We have tied up with industries, especially to have programs related to, I think, many of my learned colleagues who are panelists here, they were sharing about big data, they were sharing about artificial intelligence. The teachers are trained, the students are trained, and we also have platforms for the industry fraternity to give them the required qualification from the university perspective. I have only 2 or 3 suggestions which I would like to share, because people from the industry are more relevant and more tuned to the need of the future. From an academic perspective, it's my request to all the industry panelists here that you please join hands with universities like us, give the required platform not only to the industry professionals and freshers joining, but also for graduates, either from engineering or from management or from sciences or from humanities, because that is where we can reduce the skill gap, make them industry ready, and make them employable. Perhaps the one biggest asset what India has are the youngsters. We are a very young population, and at the same time, I think we are one of the best in the world when it comes to knowledge and skills. The other area which I wanted to share is we, from an university perspective, are open to tie up with industries to offer their programs which you offer for skilling. I remember Kaustav was trying to tell, gentleman from Singapore was trying to tell, IBM was trying to tell. Perhaps it could be a joint certification programs which we could together join and give it to the industry folks or to the students or to the learning faculty or the teaching fraternity. This is the thing which I wanted to share. I'll not much take up the time. I think industry and academics should join hands together so jointly, so that COVID-19 lockdown was perhaps it was a jolt, and maybe it was an opportunity for all us, for all the teaching fraternity, especially to make them confident and to make them realize that yes, you also can teach online. But industries have got more strengths, they have more platforms, they have more systems and processes in place, and those best practices, if it can be incorporated with the academia, perhaps the need for academia and the need for the industry and for the betterment of the industry folks or students, it can create more suitable opportunities, and it can help in developing India as one of the largest or the one of the emerging knowledge economies of the world. This is what I wanted to share, Partho. I think I thank each and every learned L&D member from the industry to have given their thoughts, and it has been really an eye-opener for many of us, because we could know that what is happening in the corporate world, we were able to get all their inputs. Now back to Partho.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. May I now request Sangram, are you there?
No, Sangram is logged off and he's going to log in. I think he has got some technical problem. We'll move forward with the next speaker.
Yeah. Shall we go to Devyani? Devyani, are you there? Yeah.
I'm here. I'm here.
Yeah. So,
thank you so much. Once again, a good evening to all my esteemed colleagues out there. This is Devjani Roy, 26 years in the industry in hardcore HR. Have moved from telecom to IT, and actually have spent quite a few years in IT for that matter, both within the top 5 companies in India, as like HCL and Wipro, as well as with some of the multinationals like Bentley Systems, which is in a very different CAD/CAM space. Having said that, currently I am in an advisory position to startups, and that also in the IT zone. So I've actually moved out from full-time to advisory roles, which is all the fun that's happening today. And I see a paradigm shift in the way the L&D function, the way the whole topic of skilling, the whole approach towards this particular subject, that even professionals like us from the HR and the L&D fraternity used to have from the times that, when I remember my HCL and Wipro days to probably today, when even a startup as small as with about 100 people are so particular about skilling issues, are so particular about reading what's going to come and become, a very critical skill maybe 2 years down the line, and starts looking at who are the best people amongst the total fraternity does it have to try and get them skilled as fast as possible, so that we are not left behind when the trend actually sets in. I think that's been the biggest change that I see in corporates today. Primarily the very different way of approach that the L&D function used to have earlier, which was more at leisure, which was more a kind of an annual function, which was more at the beck and call of, you know, the functionality of how much revenue did you generate, and therefore how much could you really put aside. And even when we understood that software, you know, was a different ball game altogether, and trainings and skillings had to go hand in hand on a regular basis, it still didn't have the energy or the kind of you know, the kind of pace or momentum which it needed to have at that point of time. And I'm talking of really the time about 10 to 14 years back. But today, I think it's not just today, it's about 3 years back, 3 to 5 years back, when I think the first time that the virtual world struck us, and the ways of the distributive environment where people had to work from distant locations and then yet patch over the world and get into conferences and do remote working, including that from home. I think that's the time this reality, this new reality about understanding the new norms of work, understanding what goes into the new normal, and what's really going to become the new, you know, from here to stay, that dawned upon us. Because initially, I think the question was that, is VUCA here for a short time, or what is it all about? And then suddenly, you know, we realized that it was here to stay, and it was going to be actually the new reality for all of us. Therefore, I think one of our speakers, I mean, pointed out very nicely. I think he was from IBM, our you know, respected speaker. He talked about the fact that more than being skilled and, you know, the full rack skilling that you can have, I think today we are looking at a workforce which needs to be agile enough, which needs to be hungry enough, and which needs to understand that to be relevant and to be marketable and to be employable, it needs to be on the skilling hierarchy. It needs to be continuously on the journey of looking out for new skills to imbibe on. And if he looks around himself, he has enough to take on. So even the fact that all that we've heard now about the learning opportunities being digital, they are all available to us from across the world. There are inventories, there are archives which are full of it. I think they are just there to be taken use of. But what is important is for people to have the right attitude in place, the workforce to have the right attitude in place, so that they know that if they need to have another good 20 years of employability around them, then they need to make sure that the learning curve never ends. And going with it, I think there's also a new realization within the organization itself that irrespective of what might be a constraint, where there could be areas where costs could be cut, there could be areas where probably expenses could be looked at, but learning is definitely no longer an area which is considered to be just a passing fancy. So a lot of organizations, the managements, the top officials, as well as the HR fraternity and the learning fraternity, has realized for the good for themselves that they need to be equally agile. So while the workforce has to be on their feet, they also need to actually be completely proactive, learn what are the trends in the market before it actually hits them, be on top of every aspect of the skilling part before it becomes an issue for them not to be able to have the first mover advantage. Therefore, I think this particular change in orientation, this completely new look, this completely new way of looking at this entire aspect of learning, of skilling, reskilling, upskilling, whatever way you call it, and making sure that you stay relevant and you stay absolutely in sync with trends today and trends tomorrow, is the major shift that we have seen in this particular domain throughout the period that we have been in business. I know there's paucity of time. One could keep on talking about it, but I'd like to, at least because much has been covered, and I'd like to really stop here and hand it over to the rest of the panelists. Thank you so much, Parthuna.
Thank you, Devjani. So now we move on to Prithvish. Now, Prithvish, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Yeah.
Am I audible?
If I remember correctly, you wanted to speak on one thing particular, and I would probably like you to go back to it and you know, put your thoughts together to talk
Sure.
about how to value skills that are not possible to automate. How does the L&D, what is the L&D perspective on this?
Sure. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, great. So good evening, everyone, my fellow panelists, attendees. I know very less time, but I'll try and do justice in terms of the time. There's a lot of knowledge sharing that has already happened in the last 1.5 hour approximately. I think those are very, very pertinent and something that each one of us can take back. So thanks to all the panelists to share their knowledge. I'll take a couple of minutes to quite quickly, go through my background. So basically, I'm Prithvish Bose. I am with Flipkart. As you know, that supply chain in a big way has been hit, but government has, allowed the e-commerce company to supply essential commodities. So currently, in the way that we operate, we are continuously attempting to kind of, deliver essential commodities to our customers. So that's the key in all that we are doing. Our thoughts and our actions and all of it are revolving around it. So having said that, we also have a futuristic plan in place. So basically, what we are looking at is the fact that business continuity has never been so important, okay, as much as it is now. So possibly that's a fact because, when we deal with our customers, right from the warehousing to our delivery hubs, all these are places require continuous operation, right? And these operations have helped us deliver essential commodities to our customer, and also the employee safety in terms of health and hygiene as well as the customer safety is paramount. So when I look at the business continuity piece, I think it's very important for us to keep on that thought and build on it. So there's a lot of work in terms of skilling. The business continuity itself, the new definition of it, and the enhanced definition of how do we respond to situation is a skill by itself. And this may be very, very niche skills because this is a situation we have never come across earlier, right? So this is a new situation that we are into, and how do we respond to it is something that is utmost important. The second part of it is also for a lot of people who are not on the field and are not on the warehouses and delivery hubs, they are working from home, right? So this is a different skill set altogether. So how do I compose myself? How do I build the resilience? How do I maintain, the balance is something that is very important. So that's another skill that we have looked at. So from a strategic point of view, if we were to really put together a plan for future skills and to look at a lot of things that we want to do, I think now is the time to prioritize and say, okay, do we want to do 10 things as a skill building and reskilling activity, or do we want to really focus on a couple of things which becomes of utmost importance? This, I think, has become a lot more engaging thought amongst leaders in the fraternity and in the industry. The other thing apart from this is, I think, what's really important is that the employees have taken up a lot of ownership. So being at home and working from home, like I said, it has become a lot more engaging. But at the same time, finding time for one's own creativity. So I'm seeing a lot of teams preparing and doing a lot of project for future. So they are teaming up together over virtual platform and putting together a project which will possibly, is actually aimed at helping the organization and their teams. So that's coming out clearly. A lot of ownerships in terms of self-learning. So we have Skills Cafe, where typically you'll find a program on data visualization, enhancing productivity. Okay, so those are offered to our employees. So we use that at this point in time. There's also from a soft skill angle and also from development angle, we have also the LinkedIn Learning, which we use significantly. So that is something that we do. And then there are curated learning programs which we do, which kind of we are also looking at it. Okay, so having said that, I think I'll limit myself to the timeline. About a couple of things that come out clearly is that the way that we have engaged this scenario of COVID-19, I think is a phenomenal one. So we are already into the 1.5 month, 2 month nearly, and especially the last 1 month has been extremely challenging for us and the team. The plan that we have put together is also, like I said, very categorically around how do we ensure that each and every employee, be it line managers, be it somebody who's on the front line, be it our backend support teams of IT, accounts, administration, whichever teams, how do we continuously engage in doing what we do best? That is something that we really look at, and as we go by, as things settle down a little, I think we would be in a better position to articulate for ourselves the priority and for the next 2-3 years to come. Okay, and that possibly is going to help a lot. That's my limited take, Partha. Thanks.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Prithvish. Jaya, you are there. Can you have you? Yeah. So basically, Jaya, from a pure L&D professional's perspective, how do you think the company should be going about this entire process? In the sense, there's a huge pressure on the budgets, right? And there is a huge redundancy that is becoming visible. So keeping both in mind, how is the L&D professional handling the entire?
Okay, so thank you very much, Partho, for having me on the panel and this opportunity to share our thoughts around how L&D has evolved and addressing this basic question about who's going to be paying for all this upskilling that is so much required. I think I'm going to do justice to the panelists to follow and stick to my 5 minutes. I think what we've managed to hit correctly, rather the tone that we've hit in Cognizant correctly, was this exercise that we did for the last 18 months or so, where most of our learning consumption, which used to be in a ILT form, we were able to move that 92% to an e-learning version. Now that was possible only because of the sponsorship that we've had from the business leaders. We've also been investing quite a bit on empowering both the learner as well as our trainer fraternity. So when I say that, this is also part of the whole who's going to pay for the skilling response, because it will not happen unless there is sponsorship that's coming from the business. And that requires alignment with business goals. It requires alignment with their SLAs or their KPIs, which are usually revenue, its cost of delivery. So how is the learning going to impact both of these? Now, given that we have been in this situation, it did not really impact our learning because, like I said, 92% of consumption was anyways online. What it is calling to attention is the fact that we have to focus on both. It's not just niche skill. We as a L&D team are catering to the needs of 70,000 employees across the globe. And our requirement is not only to skill or niche, it is also to build awareness and remove the fear that exists of what digital means. Digital until now meant job losses. To the BPO industry, this comes at a huge cost. So how are we going to handle this fear? Use this as an opportunity to skill our resources. Now, there is a lot when we talk about niche skills. It's multidimensional. It is not one single skill. And when we have resources who worked in this industry for more than 20 years, they come with a lot of domain expertise. Domain expertise that is essential for us to drive innovation. They come with personal mastery. They're able to reflect. They see patterns. They see trends, all of which is absolutely essential if we are to have some bit of creative collaboration happening, which is at the base or is the very foundation of driving innovation. If you're able to do all of this, I think skilling will pay for itself. To a large extent, mass skilling sees returns in the long run. But when we do the niche skilling piece and link it to action learning projects, a lot of which means that you have to apply what you've learned, it is mutually beneficial. Beneficial to the learner because it stays longer, they have applied what they've learned, and also beneficial to the organization because what they have invested comes back to them through those innovation projects as an outcome multiple times. Every project that we've taken up as the L&D team within Cognizant has been linked to an ROI. That is something that we've consistently followed for the last 2 years, and I think it has paid us dividends. It has paid us dividends because we have support from business, we have a huge amount of engagement with our leadership who believe in mentoring. There's also a lot of reverse mentoring happening because digital is alien to the senior and mid-level folks, but it's native to the beginners, to the millennials. We're engaging them through gamification, we're engaging them to train their seniors, and it has been very well received. So those are some things that I wanted to share, Partho, and if there are any questions, I'd certainly love to take them.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Now, is Deepak Singh there? Deepak?
Yes, I'm here, Partho.
Okay. So, Deepak, you want to take it up from here? Let's do it. I'm so sorry, because we have a long list. We've gone through almost very patiently. Yeah.
No issues, no issues. So I request Dr. Shiva to, yes, the slide is there. Hi everyone, I'm Deepak Singh here. Basically about 25 plus years of experience in the industry. My longest stint was with Honeywell, where I was working for about 13 plus years. In 2016 is when I left Honeywell, and I started on an organization called Burisco, which was more focused on business continuity, information security, and asset management perspective. So, what I thought is maybe, it would be good if I have a slide so that people can also see and relate to what I'm going to talk about. The first thing that you see on the slide is something that shook the world in 2001. Okay, and this was a disaster. That was something which was never expected. It was like black swan event, as we call it. Okay, something that suddenly happened. The next picture that you see on the right is about the situation that we are currently into. Okay, there is a huge difference between both of this, because one was that something happened just matter of seconds, matter of everything was initiated in a couple of hours. But then the second was more like a gradual impact, a gradual effect, or as we call it as the snowball effect, right? It started with a small thing sometime in 2019, and today, as we see, it has created such a huge impact. People possibly didn't expect that it would go the way it has turned out to be. Okay. Now, if you believe, 6 months back, when we used to talk to the customers saying that we'll have to plan a business continuity model for your organization, thinking about it as a complete lockdown situation or something like that, what would happen to the business operations? And people used to laugh. We had very hard time convincing clients saying that no, this could happen. This is not something which is this is reality. Okay, but then people who laughed at that point of time, they are seriously engaged now, because anything like this, which has impacted the whole organization for so long time, is not something that has happened before. Okay, and this is something that is spread across the world. It's not limited to a particular geography or region. Okay. Now, both of these events, okay, one at 90 years back and one is facing directly. This is something that has emphasized the need for business continuity to the maximum. Okay, and now today, if I talk about business continuity, in fact, business continuity is not just business continuity today. We are actually talking about resilience, okay, which is one level above business continuity. The fundamental question is, do we think that we are ready for resiliency? Don't think so. Because there are still a lot of organizations, right, which are large enterprises, small and medium enterprises, startups. Many of them, of course, large enterprises I can understand, some of the medium as well, but there are a lot of other organizations which possibly do not have a business continuity in place. Even if large organizations used to have business continuity, they didn't have a robust pandemic plan in place. And that is the reason why suddenly, the lockdown started, the flights stopped. People started, sort of reacting. So it was not about responding, it was reacting, because we were not prepared for a situation like this, right? So now here, what is important is to start focusing this very critical thing, which is business continuity, and try to understand what are those needed for an organization to sort of enable itself on this line. Okay. Now everything is business continuity starts with people, and it's very important that you have people with good knowledge about business continuity, more on the practical aspect, because business continuity is not a theoretical subject. It's a practical aspect of the whole organization, right? So this is something that we need to be careful about. And when we talk about skilling, reskilling, or upskilling, this is something that we need to see that going forward, if there is a situation like that, which we cannot say that we will not be able to say next 10 years or 15 years. Yes, this is of course something that has happened first time, of course. But then yes, if such a situation comes, are we ready? Okay, that's very important. Now, if you see, what are the things which think should be taken as priorities for organizations to say, do we need to increase our skills or competencies in the areas? Yes. The priorities will depend on the factors, like, are we prepared for an effective response? Because what may mean is, you are not prepared, then it becomes a concern for the existence of your organization. Right? So effective response, ensure that your organization continues to exist, and going forward, do N+1. If we consider this situation N, then the next step, this is something that has changed the whole aspect of all the business dynamics. The way the business used to happen earlier, the schooling used to happen, colleges used to conduct classes, everything is going to change. So what is the next step that we are talking about, right? So even when we talk about N+1, this is something that we need to prepare. We need to be prepared for going forward, okay? Which will include all aspects of your people and skills, the premises. You may not see any longer, companies having very big buildings with so much infrastructure, right? Maybe people will say that okay, maybe 50 to 60% will continue to operate out of home always. Okay, and the balance 40% will be in office, and there will be some sort of rotation or shifts, right? Important is to ensure that you are able to continue your business operations in these situations, in N+1 situation. What are the technologies that are going to help you? Okay, this is again very important. And to enable all these things, we need to have proper policies. A lot of HR policies need to be redefined, about the security aspects of the companies. All these things, the policies and the processes may have to go through a major revamp, I would say. Okay. And of course, a stronger BCM is something that will be required. So people or the organizations who have not thought about it so far, they need to be really careful about this, because existence will be in doubt if this is not thought about. Now on the right side, there's a rectangle box that you see where we have multiple channels of doing this upskilling, free webinars going on. TCS has offered something, NASCOM, right, and through various channels. But the question is the pros and cons of this. Okay, can we say that yes, this should be the new norm? Possibly yes, possibly no. But there are a lot of cons as well. So if we talk about pros for these aspects, or this N+1, we talk about the traffic issue, stress will be reduced because of people they need to travel about 1.5 to 2 hours each time. Flexibility of working from home, yes, of course. Cost optimization, a lot of infrastructure costs may be reduced because people will not go to office, right? And also talking about the environment and the nature, yes, because we can see the impact, the positive impact that we are seeing on the environment and nature, very important. But quickly looking at the cons, do we think that this model of remote working is not going to hamper our professional, personal, and emotional connections with each other? Yes, it will impact. Okay, the infrastructure, the security that you will have at home is not the same level of security that you have in your offices, right? And you can see a lot of hacking that's happening, a lot of fake links which is coming, and security is the issue. However, the backup power that you have at home, what is the reliability of the network that you have at home? What is the bandwidth for that, right? How is the VPN going to support if you have all the 10,000 employees connecting at the same point of time? So there are of course some cons. Teamwork and productivity is another big issue. I'm not sure, how many people feel that productivity is going to be the same. I seriously doubt about that, because yes, there is a good impact to productivity, of course. The other concern is, someone already talked about this in the beginning of the session, work-life balance. Earlier we used to know that yes, about 5:36 or maybe 7 we just now that's not the case. Whenever someone calls, we have to get into the call and then discuss about the office work. Okay. Now, other important factor is the societal security. With we being inside the home, not entering the home, not in. We are not spending anything outside, much apart from our rations. So what happens to the society which was developed because we used to have some businesses of theirs because we used to come out, we used to give some business for punch shop or tea shop or restaurants, hotels. There's a big impact that's going to happen to the society as well. So that is something that we need to be careful about. Yes, bonds are there. But I'm sure that going forward with this all this money, there will be some balance which gets created out of this whole exercise and our experience. This continuity, of course, will be looked forward different aspects. Pandemic, which was no longer of so far, I would say, not in focus because we could see the emergency response or the crisis management plans used to have just a small section about pandemic. But now there is a need for the organization to have a robust pandemic plan, possibly running into a couple of pages, saying that how exactly we react or respond because we are prepared now. How exactly we do this if we have a situation like this going forward. So that is from my side. I think the paucity of time and trying to restrict myself here. Thank you so much, Dr. Shiva, and thank you so much, Arthur and the panelists. Happy to be here with you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Now we have Ramakrishna Buddha. He is the India Head Learning and Development at VTO Spud Services. Rama, your perspective first as an L&D professional, and then what is happening in your industry.
Sure. Thank you, Partho. Thank you. First of all, delighted to be part of this, virtual roundtable. I head L&D for VTO Fund Services India. Basically, it's a intertrust company. We are about located in 33 other places apart from India. So I had about L&D for about 2,000 people here in India. So probably I will pick up the thread from where Pankaj and maybe Murli had was talking about. So COVID or post-COVID, what is it that we are doing? And probably I will try to dwell upon something around how do we as an organization, what is it that we are doing to prioritize skills during such times?
Yeah.
So when this whole thing hit us, and when we were trying to figure out all this work from home and what is going to happen and things like that. So what we did was we came up with a skill audit. We did something called as a skill audit. I would actually like to call it something like a learning continuity plan, much similar to a business continuity plan. So what we did was during the skill audit, what are the current skills that we have vis-a-vis what are the required skills? Could be like say during work from home, how do we add value to clients? How do we add bring in that value to the business? Or what are the skills that will be needed to handle such a business such scenario in a business continuity process? Or how do we keep this productivity level as is, right? Obviously there are a lot of clients who are not very clear about how this is all going to work or span out. And if not, at least minimize the disruption. So keeping all these as some major buckets, what we did was we kind of put all these skills in different perspectives. And then what we did was we created and rolled out programs for pointed programs for focus group teams, like teams which are handling BCP, teams which are handling project management, teams which are handling teams which are client facing. So we created all these simple digital learning and or 1 hour micro learning programs for to make sure that the workforce is more agile, or they have at least an agile mindset, right? and obviously create value in this new norm or in this new hyper connected workforce and client, right? So I'll just in the interest of time, probably I will just give you a few examples, or rather a couple of examples on the major thing that we're looking at is something very important, which even I think Pankaj and Murli were putting the focus on, was around people skills, right? I mean, in such times, people are the major assets, and they play a major role. So let's say, for example, in a normal traditional setup, in a traditional workplace setup, if I have to gather information, I'll just walk up to my colleague, or I'll just walk up to my next peer and just get that information. But now in this new norm, I mean, how do you gather information where people are scattered remotely, and how do you effectively do that over a video, at least, or at least over a VC? And these are all, this is a very simple thing, but it's very, very crucial. And similarly, how do you manage teams virtually? I mean, as a manager, how do I, effectively, allocate work, or how do I, not micromanage? Because, at a traditional workplace setup, managers are known to micromanage things, right? But in a remote setup, how do we not micromanage and give people their space? So these are some of the critical skills that during our audit, we thought of prioritizing them first, and then we started using tools like Yammer in a big way, and then we are leveraging our internal experts, like Pankaj was actually highlighting it in terms of how senior leaders can be leveraged for coaching. So we are that's where we are looking at. And uh, if you ask me how learning has changed, in this era, I think we are looking at more from a level 3 and level 4, where we are looking at behavioral change in such times, and then and how can organizations improve their performance and move beyond the level 1 and level 2 of learning. So that's where I would like to place.
Thank you so much, Rama, and thank you so much for your perspective, actually.
Yeah.
Can we have Vincent? Vincent, are you there? Yes.
Yes, I'm here.
So let's hear from Vincent. Vincent is also from the financing world. So let's hear it from him.
Okay, so good evening, everyone, respected panel members, also the organizers and the participants. So it's a good opportunity for me to introduce myself and the industry I represent. So I'm Vincent. I'm in the L&D space for the last 15 years or so. And I'm from the BFSI space and specializing in the NBFC industry. So I'm representing an organization called Kinara Capital. So we are actually providing business loans for micro entrepreneurs. So just to give you the fact, there are about 7 crore micro enterprises in the country, out of which hardly 10% even get financing through the formal financial institutes or banks. So we are actually one of the company which is catering to these kind of markets. So we are coming from an industry which was continuously affected. So be it the microfinance crisis in 2010 and the recent demonetization issue, this is the third issue that is affecting our industry at a large. Not only the employees but also the customers. But as when I speak, there are also, I wanted to give you a statistical fact. There are about 11,000 such NBFCs in India against 300 banks. So which means the depth in which we are addressing the financial inclusion can be seen in these numbers. So connecting back to the topic, which is all about upskilling. So this topic really fits an organization like us or the industry like us, because we are predominantly a customer-facing industry where day in and day out we are meeting customers face to face, be it for sales or be it for collecting the money or be it for any other service-related issues. Now, due to this current situation, where there is a restriction on even going out meeting people. So upskilling really works wonders for our kind of organization. So where we've even started training our people how to even work from home, how to set up your own virtual space, how to start scheduling yourself so that you can keep some time for talking to the customers, keep some time for talking to managers. So this is how we have started doing it. And so in addition to that, we have also started training our customers as well, because most of our customers are used to paying cash or used to pay through the automatic clearing house. So here we are teaching them how to do payments using the Razor Pay and other digital models like Google Pay. So this is a different situation or a different time that we are in. So definitely we have also started reskilling our employees, because uh, ours is like 80% feet on street employee base and predominantly sales team. Now, due to the current situation, we have to put sales on board. So we have, as a L&D head, me and my team have taken the responsibility of even reskilling the sales people for how to do collections over phone, over through internet. So this is in short the kind of upskilling and the reskilling initiatives that we recently started. Plus, throughout this year, we have worked out a lot of programs where we are planning to address it virtually. So just in the interest of time, I don't want to talk too much around this subject, but I'm from a different industry, so this really makes a difference for us about upskilling and reskilling. So I also wanted to thank the organizers for giving me an opportunity to talk about my industry.
Thanks a lot, Vincent. We are deeply touched. Thank you. So I think, Shiva, we have come to the end of the roundtable, and it's time to thank everyone who with so much of patience they stuck with us for this roundtable and shared so much that it will take a while for all of us to digest it and put it in the right order. So I think it's been a very, very enriching discussion. And your closing remarks, Shiva?
I've got three questions from the audience. Since we have exceeded the time, what I would do is I'll put it in the group. Distinguished speakers, share your perspective, and then we will revert back.
Yeah, Shiva.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Sangram.
Yes. Is it Sangram?
Yeah. Hi. Yeah. Sorry, I couldn't. I joined from the audio. I'll not take much time because we are too late, and I just would like to give things which were not spoken. Just quick things what we did. Interesting one, and I heard 2-3 words which are very key to me during the whole session. Was okay. Before I just quickly jump onto the 3 words. My name is Sangram Pawar, and I'm in this field last 26 years. And I've worked in manufacturing organizations. I did a lot of high-end consulting across the globe, leading practice for SISTEM on business transformation, change management, organizational change management, and I've done a lot of work on HR and OD space, and LNOD now. In the field of in IT industry. So a quick one. I'll just take 2 minutes here. I heard 2-3 words which really appealed me, and that's where the whole model is moving towards. One is the relevance, which is very critical for all the organizations, people as an individual. Okay, there's a huge disruption which has gone into space, and people are struggling. Organizations are struggling. Customers are also struggling with the business. The whole ecosystem is disturbed. So in this kind of situation, what is that relevance we're talking about, right? That is one question, big question mark in front of us. Second is, what is the pull and push factor which we can create in the organization, which will motivate people to acquire higher skills, new skills, reskill or upskill themselves. And what is in it for me at the end of the day, right? So as an individual, as an organization, and as a whole ecosystem, what people are trying to figure out, and what's in it for me, how I should move ahead, and there's huge identity crisis today, what we are trying to see. People are trying to really figure out what to do next. Because fortunately, we came up with a beautiful framework, and I'll talk about the framework because I'll not get into the technology pieces and all those areas, but which really is a pivotal framework for our learning and OD to be based upon. The framework talks about the overall skill and knowledge and domain. So it only focuses on that, and we have tried to cluster this framework into 3 buckets. One was into the invest cluster, where the organization wants to move into, where organization want to really invest, which are the digital technologies we want to look into, and what customer wants. And then what customer demands is very important at this point in time, and how we can improvise, our customers' life, and how we can make customer for life now. This is a big question. So, what are those invest skills and knowledge areas? What are the core skills and knowledge areas which are giving us business today also, and what are the relearn areas, wherein technologies and the skills might become extinct. So all these clusters are totally aligned to the demand and supply in an overall services space of IT services space, what we have designed. And that gives us a niche where it brings that push and pull factor in the organization. And the punchline what we use in the organization is, you are CEO of your own career. And when you say you are CEO of your own career, it itself gives a lot of motivational and motivate people to move and start looking into what are they aspiring, where they can move, how they can grow in the organization, and how they can learn. So overall framework today what we have designed is based on these 3 clusters, and the whole cluster is driven by technology relevance index. And this technology relevance index is so powerful that it is an engine which is a real-time engine, which talks about which are the skills we should quickly ramp up, which are the modules from learning standpoint we need to design and move forward on. So the technology relevance index is closely knit to the business needs, the customer needs, and therefore the knowledge areas what we want to hone in the organization, the skills what we want to develop in the organization. And then comes our skill framework, which talks about every individual is given an opportunity to select the current skill which is giving us a business, where they are today, in what role they are playing, and what are the aspirations you want to learn more, where the world is moving towards, right? And every individual is given an opportunity to select these 2 areas of skills, which are again linked to the technology relevance index, which helps us to be relevant to the business, and therefore the employees are relevant to the business. Today, 90% of our people have gone into this. Our whole reward system, our whole compensation and benefits, our training part, everything revolves around on this framework, which really helps the organization to move ahead from in terms of reskilling and upskilling people, and bringing that kind of pull and push and pull factor in the organization. So that's it from my side, Partho and Shiv. I had very short time, but I thought of just quickly brush up this and share to everyone. Thank you.
Sangram, it's my bad. It's my bad. Apologize. Okay. I almost missed you out. Good that you managed to come back in. Thank you so much for your closing comments. And as I was saying, it's extremely enriching. And we are greatly obligated to all of you for sharing the perspectives, which otherwise is extremely difficult to collate and put together. Didi, thank you so much for getting all of us together. Thanks for sharing it everywhere. Thank you, everyone. Shiva, your closing
My
comments.
Yeah, we've got three questions from the audience. Since we have exceeded the time, what we would do is I will share the questions to you all in the group, and moment we get the answer, we'll revert back to those people who have asked the question. And however, in a couple of days, this video will be available in the GWFM YouTube channel. We'll make this available. And yeah.
Doc, I have a suggestion, Deepak here. Out of the three, you can just take one and just, one line or two line answer can somebody give, and then we can follow up with a, a rejoinder. Just to keep them, because they have joined us 300 people. Just take another 5 minutes. Just take one question of you, pick a question randomly and just.
One of the questions Rajaram has asked, can you please throw a light on common skill sets and upskilling and reskilling workforce, irrespective of any industry specific?
Okay. This will need a very long answer. This will need a very long answer. Maybe we can give a very comprehensive. We can give the inputs to doctors, you and on the group, and share with you.
And we have second question. What are the key? What are the three key initiatives which can be picked up by HR function at this time of outbreak?
Can I add one? The others panel can add. Number one is don't wait to pick up anything right now. We need to reach out. Number one, to help them connected, engaged, make sure what they're supposed to do they're enabled right now. Right, and as we go along, subsequently, I think as things improve, we can add on to the list. But right now, there's a lot to be done in terms of showing the love, taking care of them, genuine care, enabling them. Make sure the life is as usual for them, both at office work as well as from the home. That is one thing we need to do.
I'll just add to what probably Deepak just said. I think one of the key things that HR needs to do is understand that the old norms of engagement, as we used to talk about in terms of employee base, is passe now. I mean, it's the employee experience which is today vastly different. And dealing with employee experience is a very different ballgame from dealing with employee engagement. Within the HR fraternity itself, I think we need to wake up to what's the difference, get ourselves skilled and competent enough to be able to look at those two paradigms very differently, and then go on to create enabling situations within the workplace, which is going to make sure that the workforce remains engaged and the experiences keep on adding to that engagement, so that we don't have to keep laboring on this pedestal all the time. I think that's something for the HR fraternity to take away.
Right. Sounds good.
Well said. Yes. Very well said.
One key word I'd like to add to what Deepak and my colleague talked about. We need to be more empathetic in this kind of situation. I go back to the basics, brilliant basics. We are dealing with human beings at the end of the day, and those human beings who are going to drive our business. So as much as we can, we should keep on speaking to our people. Continuous dialogue is the key at this point in time. That's what I feel as an individual, as a HR professional. In a day, I generally today, I keep on speaking to people, pick the phones, talk to leadership team, talk to people on the ground, and as much as we can, we should get into more empathetic mode, where people want that empathy at this point in time, because they are at anxiety levels are very high at this point in time because of the overall disruption which has happened. What uncertainty in terms of the jobs, the overall the salary hikes, the salary cuts, everything is going in their mind. What's going to happen to them as an individual is going to be very critical for us to retain people, good people in the organization. We have to engage and empathize with them. That is what my keyword would be at this point in time.
Didi, any closing comments from you and Sandeep?
My problem is my comments are, they have lyrical twist to them. So I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it to my
Sandeep,
So
anything from your
yeah,
side?
yeah. So quite an engaging discussion we had, and there's a lot of things to take away and a lot of things to introspect now. And these are very testing times. As I said, along with pandemic, there is infodemic. So too many information. What is correct, what is not correct, that is need to be seen. So it's really very interesting. These kind of things humanity or HR professionals have never faced before.
I would like to add to that. I'm sure all of us, especially the men, are working and helping their family members at home. I would recommend and strongly advocate they should stop allowing any of these spouses coming into a kitchen. Trust me, if you spend more time in the kitchen and manage the kitchen entirely by yourself, there is a lot to learn from there. I have personally been doing this. There's so many insights that have come. More often we are used to a bathroom में बहुत अच्छे ideas आते हैं. बाबा kitchen में भी उससे भी अच्छे ideas आते हैं. Because it's so therapeutic when you're cleaning the place. Once you make your breakfast and tea and coffee and everything, and once you're cleaning up the place, it's so therapeutic. And trust me, you enjoy it, and the joy and that pleasure that you get when you serve them and tell, hey, listen, tea is ready. You've not done this. I tell you, I'm having the best of the time, and that is motivating me, inspiring me to look at things very differently in office. Trust me, you need the time. I think this is a great time, and the more we engage and passionately do whatever we are supposed to anyway do, and there's a lot of mountain of passion that is there which you need to really tap it.
Wonderful. Wonderful. In fact, I'm very fond of cooking, so I'm getting all my opportunities now. So and also for people who are on the wrong side of 60s, we have sleep disorders to handle, and cooking at odd times is almost it gives you a very calm sleep that you managed one more day. Anyways, gentlemen, ladies, wonderful to have you all with us today, and thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Shiva, Dada, Pardu, and everybody on the call.
Thank you very much for this.
Thank you, Dr. Shiva. Thank you, Dada.
Thank you. 300 plus members joining. Wonderful. Excellent.
Yeah, that's a great number.
We'll share the questions on the group so that we can individually respond, and
we can keep on adding as we get more insights. We can continue the conversation there. Yeah.
Hey, Kaustav, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kaustav. Thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye, guys.
God bless you all. And the fight is on, and we'll, there is no other option. We have to remain, positive, and we'll be victorious. That's the only option.
Yes.
Thank you, Partho.
Yeah?
Thank you, Shiva. Thank you all learned colleagues.
Sarji, thank you. Thank you so much, Sarji.
Bye.
So
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Didi. Thanks,
Thank
Sandeep.
you, everyone. Thank you, Shiva. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Good to have you. Thank you so much.